Now you listen here, Lesser, and you listen here, good leper. I'm not a racist, but what does your own mitomap fucking human migration show? It shows that the L guys stayed here while everyone else evolved into some other kind of fucking devil. While we stayed in the image of God. You had the main devil, the K devil. You had the H2 devil. You had the T devil, the U devil, the V, the W, the X, the H. You have the I devil, the J devil. Then you have these guys. I don't know what to think about them. Besides, they deny my ancestors any credit. You have the A devil. The A devil is a white devil. I'm just kidding. The A devil is the Mongoloid who came over here and to America about 9,000 years ago, right? So you had, according to this, so it talks about here the mutation rate. Let me see. Mutation rate and time estimates, YBP. So they're saying the mutation rate is 2.2 to 2.9%. It's interesting. It's from 2002, mitomap.org. Basically, what this shows is that man started here, and the L1 guys, you see the Jews are more like the N guys, right? They go over here, and then they come back and end up here. And they end up in Ethiopia, as well as down in South Africa, the Lemba. So why does the Lemba migration? So if you couple that with this, the migration of the Lemba, okay, it starts here below Kenya, in Tanzania, and then it goes south. And there's all kinds of Jewish mixing over here. So what the migration chart really shows you is that the N guys either went on to become K, or they would stay in this relative area. Now let's couple that with the Bible. Where did the Jews go? The Jews started in this particular area, in the NM area. And we'll call it Afro-Asiatic because we'll call it Asia Minor mixed with Africa, Northeast Africa. So there's your Afro-Asiatic dialect, while Japheth is over here in the mountains. When does Japheth start coming down from the mountains? Does he do it 50,000 years ago? No, he didn't have the technology, he didn't have the reason, really. It's not until they build empires. They have city peoples. They have city-states and sea peoples about 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, as much as 5,000, 6,000 years ago. They have sea peoples around the Mediterranean and the Europe side of the Mediterranean. And what happens then? In Cyprus and Greece and Italy and Spain and all this area, what happens then? These guys are over here fighting with the Egyptians. These guys are over here The Jews are over here in Babylon. Okay, Babylon covered Egypt and stretched out here to Iran, Iraq, Syria, etc. So they're over here in Babylon, Lebanon, Israel. It was stretched out, and it was centers was over here in modern day Iraq, that area, and it was big. And you had Nineveh, and I told you about the Uruk and the centers of Babylon. Okay, and Sargon uniting the two lands, etc. Remember, Sargon wasn't until later. Sargon was until after Menzies. Sargon wasn't until right before the Hyksos. Okay, so Sargon lived in a time when black people were ruling the world. And if you believe the Epic of Gilgamesh and the myths of Babylon, then Gilgamesh was a black guy too. So these guys are occupying here, and they're receiving very little resistance from Europe. A lot of it is the Arab tribes right here, the Ishmaelites, and you have these guys. So Japheth and them, they're over here. I told you about Tagrama. I told you about the different Gomer, and I told you about Joktan and the different Japheth people, different Japheth families and lands. They were basically in Eurasia, and they stretch into West Asia. They stretch from everywhere from Western Europe to Western Asia. Okay, so the Native Americans did not take part in the Bible, as this migration shows. They evolved from these people who were subjugated by the Olmec who went over there. So those people there before the Olmec, and the Olmec went there to tax them, and the Olmecs were the Egyptians. So if you see the route that they took to get there, the Egyptians decided, how can we go and tax those people? Do we do it by ship, or do we do it long range? Okay. At one point, a pharaoh decided to circumvent Africa. Okay, we're talking about way back. Anyway, this basically migration chart shows, when it mixed with all the other charts I showed you about the R1b and all the other charts that I addressed with the haplogroups and the mtDNA, the mitomaps, the migrations, the area migration theory, all the different genetic charts and maps and human genome project related scientific material I've shown you to prove my point. That the Jews not only spoke an Afro-Asiatic dialect that came from Igbo land area, they were also people that came from Africa who mixed in with the Hyksos invaders and the Semitic tribes that followed. So really, we're talking about the descendants of Africans in Babylon and Europe. Remember, if we're talking about the time of Abraham, we're talking about after some white people have invaded. So there is some white in there, but we're talking mostly Afro-Asiatic. And then he comes in this way, and he settles in the Delta. Then he leaves, goes back to Israel, and later on Joseph is taken after he's betrayed by his brothers, and his 12 brothers come. Remember, I told you about Issachar and Zebulun and Benjamin and Asher and Gad and Reuben and Simeon and Judah and Naphtali and the different roles they played. So all the 12 tribes came with Jacob, who also his name was Israel, and then he goes back and wrestles Israel and founds the land of Israel where Canaan is, and he takes the land from the Canaanites. And later on, when the Jews become slaves again, what ends up happening is Moses has an exodus around 1200 BCE and goes back to here. So the migration of the Jews before Jesus were from Babylon to Egypt, back to Israel, which is closer to Africa than Babylon is, then back to Egypt, then back to the Middle East, and then some of them went to Europe. And that's why you have some white-looking Jews. So these people had a darker skin, but in contrast to everybody else, they were lighter. And there was also some whiter Jews amongst them, possibly. I'll end it there.